A TV show called Our Yorkshire Farm followed Amanda Owen and her family as they lived in the difficult but beautiful Yorkshire Dales. Amanda was the Yorkshire shepherdess, which meant she was in charge of a 2,000-acre farm, 9 kids, and more than 900 sheep and 30 horses. But Amanda finally tells the truth about Yorkshire Farm when she is 50 years old. The difficulties, sacrifices, and real life behind the scenes that fans didn't always see. This new information helps us understand how complicated her life is and why the popular TV show The Yorkshire Farm ended. Yorkshire Farm is a reality TV show that showed how the Owen family, who run a farm in the Yorkshire Dales, live their daily lives. When it first aired a few years ago, the show was an instant hit, with viewers drawn in by its honest picture of life in the UK's countryside. It wasn't just the farms, cows, and sheep. It was about the people who lived and worked on the land, so it gave a real look into a way of life that isn't often shown. In a perfect setting, the farm is tucked away in the rolling hills of Yorkshire on a large, beautiful property. It's clear why so many people were interested in it. The land seems to go on forever, with cute stone cottages and the odd animal grazing on it. There is a sense of timelessness in this place, where everything is linked to the land and life moves more slowly. But the family that ran Yorkshire Farm was what made it stand out. Amanda Owen, who is the head of the family, quickly became the show's star. Because she doesn't put up with nonsense, she's the glue that holds everything together, on and off screen. Because Amanda had a strong sense of duty and a deep love for her farm, she was the right person to anchor the story. People didn't just watch Amanda, though. They also cared about her kids and the way her family interacted in front of the cameras. It wasn't all about farming in the Owen family story. It was about the people you meet, the hard work, and the happy and sad little moments that come with life on a farm. From the oldest to the youngest, each kid had a job to do, like helping with chores, taking care of animals, or just being a part of everyday life with the family. There was something about the way they worked together that made it easy for everyone to understand. One of the main ideas of the show was how close they were as a family and as a team. When the show first came out, it was clear that the Owen family's farm was different from most other farms that people had seen on TV. It wasn't the polished, planned drama that you usually see on reality TV. It was original and not changed in any way. Amanda and her family weren't afraid to face the harsh realities of farm life. Whether it was dealing with problems with animal health or the unpredictable British weather, the show showed a true picture of life in the country. There were no unrealistic plots or cuts. What people saw was real and authentic. Over time, fans became very devoted to the show. People really liked seeing the Owens live their daily lives and also became interested in the family's personal stories. The kids grew up on screen, and as they helped out on the farm more or went through the ups and downs of growing up, their characters came out. It wasn't just a show about farms. This show was about family, strength, and the difficulties of living a life that many people could only dream of. Like any good show, though, there was a darker side that most people didn't see. On the farm, life for the Owen family wasn't always as beautiful as it looked. There were struggles, tensions, and unspoken facts going on behind the scenes that viewers never saw. In particular, Amanda had to figure out how to be a public figure while also juggling the needs of farming and her family. How things really are on the farm. It's not easy for the Owen family to live on their farm in Yorkshire. People were drawn to Yorkshire Farm because of its peaceful landscapes and charming country life, but behind the scenes things are much tougher and more difficult. Amanda and her family's work to make the farm work was shown on the show. From taking care of animals to figuring out how to get around in changing weather, but what wasn't shown was how hard it really was for them to live their daily lives. Farming is hard work that involves more than just taking care of animals and food. The Owen family's farm needs to be fixed up all the time. Fixing fences and machines is just one part of making sure the animals are healthy and fed. The family has to brave freezing weather and snowstorms to take care of their animals in the winter, which makes the work even harder. There is never a break in the hard work. Every day brings new problems that require mental and physical power. For Amanda, Living on a farm meant juggling the constant needs of the land with being a wife and mother. Amanda looked calm on screen, taking care of the farm and her family with style. But behind the scenes, it was always hard to keep everything together. In addition to cooking meals, taking care of animals, fixing machines, and cleaning the house, she often had a lot of other things to do. She also made sure that her kids learned the same strong work ethic she did. A lot of people didn't fully understand the juggling act. It was work all the time, even when the cameras were off. Some days, Amanda would get up early to do her jobs. The frost in the early morning would make her hands cold, and her mind was already packed with all the things she had to do. Also, her kids would get up early. As they got bigger, their jobs on the farm grew. The bigger kids would help feed the animals, and the younger kids would play in the barn and learn about how things work on a farm. The show showed how close the family was during these times, but it didn't always show how tiring or tense life could be when things are so intense. People often make farming sound sweet, but it's really not that fun. Especially when the farm's needs are always met, there isn't much time for fun or relaxing. She and her family had to deal with the weather when they farmed. Storms that came out of nowhere or crops that didn't do as well as planned meant long hours of extra work to make up for lost time. Even when things went wrong, Amanda had to keep everyone on track and focused so that the family looked like they were doing well and being happy. At times, the show also talked about the harder things that farmers go through, like when their animals get sick or bad weather destroys their fields. There were times when the Owen family had to make tough choices because things didn't go as planned. But even during those tough times, the show stayed positive by focusing on the family's strength instead of how hard life was on the farm. There were times when things weren't so easy behind the cameras. Like, Amanda sometimes had to deal with personal problems that fans didn't know about, like how farming affected her marriage. It was shown on the show that she and her husband Clive were very united, but in fact, farm life put a lot of stress on their relationship. It's not easy to stay married while raising kids and running a farm. And Amanda could sometimes feel the stress. The family had to deal with the stress of being on a reality TV show in addition to the stress of being at home. There were cameras everywhere, and they caught every moment, good or bad. Even though it made for interesting TV, Amanda and her family had to live in the public eye all the time. She finally had to talk about it because it wasn't something that could be quickly turned off when the cameras stopped rolling. The way the family works. Yorkshire Farm showed how the Owen family lived their daily lives, but it didn't always show the less public problems Amanda and her family had to deal with while trying to run the farm. Things can go wrong on a farm. For Amanda, it meant facing problems that could not be fully captured by any amount of camera time. Amanda had a hard time keeping her home life and her farm life in balance. In addition to taking care of the farm, Amanda had to keep her kids, who were growing up quickly, safe and happy at home. As the kids got bigger, they needed more attention, and Amanda had to find a way to fulfill their needs while also taking care of the farm's constant needs. Amanda had to get used to being a mom to young adults with their own responsibilities. When her kids were younger, they were easy to handle, but now they were big enough to handle on their own. Her marriage started to suffer as she struggled to keep her own life in balance. Amanda and Clive worked together on the farm and seemed like a perfect couple on TV, but their relationship was anything but. It was hard for them, as it is for many couples. The stress of having a farm and being on a reality TV show meant that they often didn't agree with each other. Farming can make you feel alone, and the stress of the constant work started to hurt their relationship. Amanda and Clive couldn't stay as close as they used to because they worked long hours and didn't have much free time. Some viewers said there were tense parts in the show. What they didn't see, though, were their inner fights. It wasn't just the farm. They were about the most important parts of their friendship. They often didn't have the time or energy to work on their marriage because they had to work together all the time on the farm. Another big problem the Owens had to deal with was the hard truth of public life. People paid more attention to Amanda than she thought they would when she first signed up for the reality TV show. While the cameras caught the good parts of farm life, they also showed the bad parts, like bad weather, hard choices, and personal struggles. It was clear to everyone what went wrong and what went right. Most people liked the Owens, but there were always people who didn't like how they farmed or how they handled their family. Amanda had to learn how to deal with criticism from the public, which got harder as the show got more famous. A lot of people had strong views about the family's personal lives as well as how they ran their farm. The Owens were in the public eye for both good and bad reasons, and it wasn't always easy to deal with the stress. Amanda and Clive sometimes felt alone because they had a harder time keeping their family life secret because of all the attention. Amanda stayed on the farm and worked hard to make sure everything ran easily, even though she was having a hard time. But it was clear that it hurt emotionally. She talked about being strong and how important it was for her to stay strong for her family. Though, she did sometimes wonder if she was doing enough. She started to wonder if the things they were giving up for the show and the farm were really worth it or if it was hurting them in a way that they could never fix. Both success and problems. As more people watched the show, Amanda, Clive, and their kids were put under more stress. A small, quiet farming life turned into a tornado of attention, demands, and things that didn't go as planned. People watched the show because they loved the beautiful scenery and the simplicity of life on the farm, but things were more complicated behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, there was a lot of stress that was getting too much to ignore. Amanda seemed calm on screen, but behind the scenes, things were starting to look less perfect. The family had to deal with the fact that their farm was now a public attraction. Their every move was being watched. From how they took care of their pets to how they lived their own lives. They started to feel the show's stresses in every part of their lives. And this made a life that was already hard even harder. Amanda had been the face of the farm for a long time, but the stress was starting to get to her. Because of the show, she and her family became well known. That made me feel like I had a huge amount of duty. The family began to feel like they were losing their privacy as more people looked into their lives. People who had never been on a farm were often the ones who looked at everything, from how they raised their kids to how they farmed. The situation was just as hard for Clive. In the beginning, he liked the idea of having a television show. But as time went on, the stresses of public life also started to get to him. He had always been the shy and quiet one in the relationship, but the cameras made him want to be the star. He started to feel stressed out from all the attention and being watched at all times. He felt like he was losing the privacy he had once had because the farm that had been his safe place was now a place where everyone could see him. Even though Amanda and Clive were under a lot of stress because of the show, the kids were also feeling it. As the family's younger members got bigger, they started to become their own people, and that made them want to be on their own. Sometimes, the cameras followed the kids around everywhere they went, which was annoying for them. They were no longer just farm kids. Because they were now part of a bigger story, that change brought its own problems. The bigger kids had the hardest time with the idea of growing up in front of a camera crew. Some of the kids didn't like how there was no privacy and constant filming. They said they didn't feel comfortable with the scenario. Because of the extra stress, things started to get bad between Amanda and Clive. Still, even though they both cared about the farm, they often ran into problems. Being in charge of a reality TV show and running a farm at the same time was causing stress between them. Amanda felt like she had to keep up the public image they had built for themselves while also running the farm. Clive, on the other hand, was getting more and more annoyed by the cameras and the demands that were put on them as a family. There were more and more fights, and it was clear that the stress of the show was starting to hurt their relationship. At this point, Amanda began to understand how badly the show was affecting her family. She felt like she was losing control the more she tried to keep things together. The stress was making her think and feel worse, which was bad for her health. When she and Clive broke up, it was the first surprise for everyone. However, that was only the beginning. The truth came out. Amanda Owen was about to make a choice that would change everything after years of living in the public eye and in front of cameras. People who watched the show only saw a part of the story. Under the surface, the real truth had been kept secret. Now it was Amanda's turn to come forward and tell the world. Amanda had spent years carefully creating a character for the show that showed a life that was both hardworking and sweet. But the stress of keeping up that image had worn her down. It was getting too hard to handle the problems with Clive, the needs of shooting, and the constant balancing act between private and public life. Her temper had finally lost its cool. Amanda Owen finally tells the truth about Yorkshire Farm when she is 50 years old. This is too obvious for me to hide. Not from the fans and not from me either. She came to the realization that the life she was acting out was not really the life she was living. Now was the time for her to face the truth. Not just for herself, but also for her family and friends. Amanda didn't just decide to speak out because of the stress of the show. It was also about how it made her family feel. Being in the public eye all the time and the demands of shooting had made her relationship with Clive worse, and the kids were also feeling the weight of the attention. They used to be a family living on a farm in the Yorkshire Dales, but now they were a home under constant pressure, where every move and choice was being watched closely. Amanda knew that something had to change for them to keep living their true lives. Amanda had already started to pull away from the public side of their farming life. She stopped going on public events and interviews because she wanted more time to spend with her family and on the farm without cameras always following her. It wasn't easy to leave, though, because the show had become such an important part of their lives. The makers and the network cared about the Owens family, and their work was crucial to the farm's future in Yorkshire. But Amanda knew what she wanted to do. That was enough. She was ready to take charge of her own story. She told everyone that she and Clive had decided to leave the show. It wasn't easy to make the choice, but it was the only way for them to get their lives back. Together, the stress of the reality show and the stress it had put on their personal lives was too much to handle. Amanda said that the family had been through a lot in the past few years and that she thought it would be best for them to take a break. The news shocked people all over the world. Many show fans were sad to hear that the Owens family would no longer be on the show, but they also understood why Amanda made the choice she did. Public felt a mix of admiration for Amanda's bravery and sadness at the end of a deeply cherished TV show. Amanda decided to care for her family more than anything else. A choice that wasn't about money or fame, but about getting their lives back from the cameras. It wasn't just leaving a TV show. It was about getting back in touch with what really counted. Now, all they could think about was the farm, the animals, and the peace they had known before. After effects and the future. There was more going on than just the end of a popular TV show when Amanda Owen left our Yorkshire farm. It led to a deeper talk about what it means to be famous, what life is really like in the country, and how important it is to be real in a media world that is full of drama. For many years, the Owen family was the center of one of the most watched country shows in Britain. But behind the peaceful pictures of hills covered with sheep and cute family activities was the growing stress that came with being seen by so many people all the time. When Amanda left, it was the end of one story and the beginning of a new one. Less noisy, more private, and much more personal. Channel 5 said in 2022 that the show would not be coming back after Amanda and Clive's divorce after 22 years of marriage. Even though Amanda's friends were heartbroken, she didn't completely disappear from the public eye. She put her attention back on her family and the farm, which were the things that were most important to her. She kept posting pictures of her daily life on social media, giving people a more real look at life in the Dales without the slick production of a TV crew. There were still real-life effects of leaving the show, though. Our farm in Yorkshire had been more than just a place to start. It gave them money, security, and a sense of who they were. Amanda and Clive had to find new ground after walking away. Even though they weren't together anymore, they were still committed to co-parenting and keeping their 9 kids' lives regular. The kids had long needed privacy, and the lack of cams gave them that. They could grow up without having to worry about being watched by everyone. That was not the end of the story, though. Amanda and Clive came back to TV in 2024 in a new show on Channel 4 called Our Farm Next Door, Amanda, Clive, and Kids. That's not what most people mean by comeback. This show was about fixing up Auntie John's, a rundown farmhouse, and showed a more honest side of co-parenting after getting married and keeping a family centered during change. At the same time, their son Reuben started his own show called Reuben Life in the Dales. The show followed his journey as an adult and business owner. The Owens were still famous, but not because they were on a reality show that made headlines. They did it their own way. That may be the most important part of Amanda's story. She chose not to leave fame, not because she had to. It was because she wanted something real that she left. A life where the farm, not the cameras, came first. Now that everything is calm, it's clear that her story won't end. It's just getting better. Even though the lights are off, Amanda's voice and the quiet power of her decisions can still be heard. How did you enjoy the show? Share your thoughts below.